Excellencies, distinguished guests, honored speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome. It is with deep respect that we open today's conference by pausing to remember the victims of the 1995 genocide in Srebrenica. I kindly invite you to join me in a moment of silence in their memory. My name is Iris Begic, and it's my great honor to serve as your moderator for this important and deeply meaningful occasion. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, representatives of permanent missions and international organizations, members of the diplomatic corps, and all participants joining us today. Thank you for joining us in remembrance and solidarity. It is my great pleasure to open today's conference by inviting Mr. Siradj Duhan, President of Bosnian Academic Society in Austria, to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you, Iris. History teaches that reconciliation is possible. Yet, 31 years after the genocide in Srebrenica, a crime unequivocally established by the International Court of Justice and International Crime Tribunal for former Yugoslavia, we must ask, why do the Western Balkans continue to struggle to transform a painful past into a shared future? Consider the rivers that run through our region, the Drina, the Sava, Danube. They do not recognize borders, nor do they ask for passports. They flow through Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia and Croatia, indifferent to our human divisions. Their value depends entirely on whether communities on both sides choose to protect them together. I submit that reconciliation is this river. It doesn't erase the tragedy upstream, but it offers a current toward a common delta. Let us be clear. Historical truth, as established by the international courts, cannot be subject to political reinterpretation. Srebrenica must remain a place of remembrance and sorrow, but let it also become a crossing point, not a dead end. Let it be the place where the proof that the river of history, however turbulent its course, can still flow toward a shared sea of civic dignity and lasting peace. History has shown that reconciliation is possible. The question, distinguished guests, is whether leaders in Belgrade, Zagreb, eventually Sarajevo, and beyond have the courage to step into that river together. What we need now, we need Willy Brandt from Serbia, from Belgrade, to do the same. And after that, the Bosnian shall think about reconciliation on the Balkan. But without the first step from Belgrade, will be very, very difficult. I thank you, and I hope we will get some answers of those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duhan, for your powerful words and for opening our program with such thoughtful reflection. It's my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, Geoffrey Nice, former prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. It is a great honor to be invited to join you, and I regret not being with you in person, but I'm at an annual event where we look at mass atrocities generally, but always with a focus on Srebrenica, because the foundation that puts on the event I am was aimed at providing opportunities for consideration of the comparatively recent past, as it was at the beginning, of young people from all parts of the former Yugoslavia. The question I think that you want me to deal with specifically, and of which I was given advance notice, is that in two parts. Do I believe international justice has truly deterred future atrocities? And I regret to say that the answer, in my view, to that question, as specifically formulated, is probably not. And the probably not is not specific to the ICTY. It is general and arises from the slightly longer history of international tribunals seeking accountability that started with Nuremberg trials after World War II, took a pause, and then started again with the Rwanda, former Yugoslavia, other tribunals, and the Permanent International Criminal Court. And there is, I fear, little or no evidence that the mere conviction of a person here leads to someone who might have committed a genocide or other war crime here, leads to him deciding differently. Of course, if he had thought about doing it and did decide differently because of the tribunal, then we won't know. But there's actually no evidence that convictions work. Before I turn to the positive half of the answer to that question, or a second part of a positive answer to that question, the tribunal has achieved arguably many great things because it has provided some resolutions, some solace for victims, survivors, bereaved, seeing a public process of accountability resolved, and if the resolution by conviction or otherwise equates with their understanding, then that can be of great help to them. They've also been of great assistance, even though they say that's not their purpose, in leaving a historical record that, so far as many of the trials are concerned, may be relatively unchallenged, and a better record than would otherwise have been left. Turning from the specific way in which the question is asked to a slightly different question for the future, but also looking back a little bit at what happened concerning Srebrenica, is this: does any part of the process of accountability, may any part of the process of accountability serve to deter future war criminals? And to that, although I think my position is not unusual, but it's not often adopted, to that I think the answer is yes. Because the process of investigation, especially if the process is as open as can be, is one that certainly can, and I suspect does, deter people from doing what they would otherwise do because they fear being arrested, handcuffed, humiliated by a trial, where they're forced to confront what they did by telling the truth or by adding to their problems in telling versions that are disbelieved. And so for me, although I worked on a couple of trials, all concerning things that happened within Bosnia, 3 trials, it's not the trial process by when the accused is already in the handcuffs in the court. It's arguably the process leading to a trial that is most likely to assist. I didn't check. How long do you want me to speak for? When do you want me to shut up?
It's not a problem. You can have time till you have to leave.
Okay, that's very kind of you. And I'm going to give you an example of how important the process of investigation can be. But before I do that, as I said, a little backward look at Srebrenica in particular. As you will all know, you on the panel and probably everyone in the audience, there were limited findings of genocide about what happened at Srebrenica, both at the International Criminal Tribunal and in the International Court of Justice. And I think it can be said with confidence that those decisions are clearly wrong. Not wrong because of a finding of genocide, but because of the details of the finding. The details of the finding in all cases, arguably driven by political influence or sensitivity, were that it happened in a very short space of time. And genocide is not like that. Genocide is a process, started, rolls, and continues until it will be stopped, almost always requiring to be stopped by an external force. So either, and you may think it's unpalatable for me to say this, but it needs to be said, either there was no genocide, or the relevant genocide was 2 years or more, and covering a much wider territory than just Srebrenica, reflecting the genocidal intention of the leaders of Serbia, as well as of the Bosnian Serbs, and as it happens, culminating in Srebrenica's awful tragedy, but involving commission of genocide along the way, and indeed along the river. Efforts to explore that broader, longer history have failed. The trial of Milosevic might have broadened the otherwise limited determinations of genocide, because a broader view was in the indictment, and that indictment passed the test that the judges applied at the end of the prosecution case. But then Milosevic's life ended, and there has been no verdict of any kind. As many of you will know, efforts were made at the 10th year anniversary of the International Court of Justice verdict or finding, because that was the maximum amount of time for something called revision. Efforts were started rather than made that might have led to a full-blown reopening of the issue and an expansion of the determination. But for rather unhappy events, which I don't think at an event of this kind it's particularly helpful for me to go into, the process in which I was engaged for a time was, shall we say, found to be invalid, and not something that it would have been proper for us to stick with, because inevitably such application as was made on behalf of Bosnia to have a revision was thrown out by a court that we knew in advance, and for rather mischievous reasons was going to be thrown out. Even now, I sometimes hope that I can find the reserves of whatever it is I once had, maybe I still have it, to make further efforts to at least enlarge the Srebrenica record. And as I expect you all know, but many people who you might expect to know don't, since about 2013, much more information has come out about what happened between May and July of 1995. And we now know, it's clear on material that is CIA, not CIA, State Department and otherwise completely reliable. We know that Prime Minister Major and President Chirac of France telephoned President Clinton, and on the 28th of May, pursuant to those phone calls, a decision was made not to defend Srebrenica by air power. And as a result of that, what might have been done to stop this massacre, genocide if you will, never happened. Who made the final decision? We don't know yet. Yet, extraordinarily. How did Mladic know or guess with some certainty that he could do what he did? We still don't know. And that, I think, brings me to an intermediary point, then to my final example, and then with your good grace, I will probably listen in for a bit and depart. The midpoint is this, and it applies to the human being just as much as to the town council, the canton government, the government of a state. It applies as much to Bosnia-Herzegovina as to Serbia, Croatia, and everywhere else, as much as to the United States of America, the United Kingdom. And that is, if I come back to the individual, if and when there is something to which you should admit, something you should own up to, you can hide it, you can push it back, you can even go to your deathbed as an individual, never revealing it. But your life will be better, and the lives of others affected by your not owning up will be better. Always, if you do. And so far as Srebrenica is concerned, we are still, with people alive and able to explain what they did, in America, in Great Britain, in France, and probably elsewhere, who could own up and make their lives better and yours. Passing back through my middle point, the time has come for responsible countries, those involved with Srebrenica, to do what investigation might have done, to own up all they know, and that may, I would hope, bring some aspect of a better future for your country, and so far as I'm concerned, your wonderful city of Sarajevo and other places, and your people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nice, for your contribution and for being part of today's discussion. Thank you.